Do we still need feminism in 2020? It seems almost unbelievable, but yes, in 2020 we do still need feminism. Over time we have achieved a lot of rights, but that's not enough. It won't be enough until we have what we want, equality. That's the magic word, equality. Feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the ground of the equality of the sexes, in which women's rights are rights that promote a position of legal and social equality of women with men. Let's make it clear, it isn't an anti-men movement. Actually, everyone should be a feminist, women as well as men. There are still some problems that need to be solved, and the only way to solve them is to continue fighting for our rights.
Streets are dangerous for women. Women don't feel safe walking down the street at any time, especially in some countries where the female figure is dominated by men. The average male heterosexual is free to go wherever he wants, at any time, and dress as he wants, while a woman is afraid to be harassed. The fact that women can't act the way they want is a consequence of the society we live in, which limits women and critiques when someone goes outside its schemes. In addition to the way people can judge and ruin a woman's reputation, there are also some dangers. Women are forced to live with the fear of being raped or kidnapped. Many women have been killed as a result of rape by their unknown rapists. One example is the young girl in her 20s named Seren Özdemir, who was killed by an unknown man who escaped from prison last December. This happened in Turkey and sent shockwaves throughout the country. If the sentences do not become more severe, these actions will be carried out again and again.
Education for everyone. Niger, Burkina Faso, Afghanistan, these are only 3 of the many places where girls are denied an education. In Niger, only 17% of women between 15 and 24 years are literate. In Burkina Faso, only 1% of girls complete secondary school, and finally, in Afghanistan, there is a huge gender gap and boys are more likely to go to school rather than girls, according to the BBC. We need women like Sakena, a woman who in Afghanistan opened several schools to guarantee an education to most of the girls in her country. This wasn't easy, especially during the Taliban period, but she did not give up and organized secret schools because, as she writes in the website The World's Children's Prize, everyone has the right to go to school. It's just as important as eating or breathing.
The birth control pill. The birth control pill is still today a very controversial topic, also because it is a result of a cultural revolution. It can be used both for pregnancy prevention and to regulate menstrual cycle, but it is criticized because it is the first concrete act that women carried out in the 60s to decide for their own bodies. Men always had sexual freedom and are not criticized when they buy condoms, while women, even today, are seen as immoral and without value when they use the pill. This happens because when men buy condoms, they are seen as responsible because they have a protected sexual intercourse, while when women use the pill, they are seen as just on the lookout for casual sex without consequences. We have to realize that these stereotypes should not even exist in 2020, and that women can decide for themselves. Also, the pill has many positive aspects. For example, it brings more freedom of choice to the couple, who can worry less about the planning of the birth of their children.
Sexism at work. In the world of work, sexism is still a problem. We are not only speaking about the wage gaps between women and men, we are talking about dress code and sexual harassment. In fact, the targets are primarily women. An example is what happened in Japan, where women are not allowed to wear glasses at work because they give a cold impression. The BBC wrote an article about this, interviewing a Japanese professor of sociology called Kumiko Nemoto. She said that these kind of bans don't make any sense and are just discriminatory because men doing the same job are not prohibited to wear glasses. Moreover, even in USA's high schools, dress codes are unfair towards girls. They are required to follow a strict dress code because otherwise they will distract boys. And it's not all. The data shows that 41% of young women is reluctant to report sexual harassment at work for fear of losing their jobs. The underlying problem is that people don't understand. Already when they ask what took her so long or why didn't she report it before, they imply that women who initially chose not to report sexual harassment handled the situation incorrectly. Sadly, reporting sexual harassment can cause risk to the career. But should not society actually be protecting these women rather than making them feel as if they are the ones that did something wrong? These are steps back both for women and men. They support objectification of women and describe men as if they can see a woman only in a sexual way.
Victim blaming is still a big deal. People who have never been abused often wonder why a person didn't just leave an abusive relationship. They don't understand that leaving can be more complicated than it seems. There are several reasons for victims to decide not to report an abuse. For example, the belief that abuse is normal because they don't know what a healthy relationship is. The embarrassment or shame of admitting that they've been abused and therefore being judged. The continuous blaming of the victims for the abuse from the partner who convinced them that it's their fault. The love victims feel for their abusive partner may be because they have children or maybe because the victims hope the partner will change behavior. The traditional gender roles by some culture or religion. The lack of money makes it impossible for victims to leave the abusive partner.
Femicide is still a big problem. In Italy, only in the first 10 months of 2019, there were 95 homicides and the victims were women. It's unbelievable, but it's almost one femicide every 3 days, as the data of the Eurus research show. In 2018, the women killed were 142, one more than the year before. Female victims reached the highest value ever recorded in Italy. Even in the first month of 2020, we have had new cases of femicide. An example is the one that took place in Sicily, where a woman was beaten by her husband for 3 days until she died because she was having an affair. They have been married for 30 years, and more than one time she reported episodes of violence to the police, but she never received help. The justification of the man was the cheating of his wife with many other men. This kind of behavior can be linked to the fascism period where, with a law called delitto d'onore, men could kill their wives if they were cheating on them, or even their sisters if they were dating someone they didn't like.
Another example is the one happened near our city, in Appiano, where Barbara Rauch, a 28-year-old woman, was killed by her stalker, Lucas Oberhauser. Just like the Sicilian woman, also Barbara reported various times the 25-year-old man from Terlano to the police after they broke up many years ago, but this didn't stop him. She achieved a restraining order, but when this expired, he didn't hesitate to kill the woman in her own bar. Barbara lived with her 3-year-old child and her new partner, and probably the presence of this man was what pushed Lucas to take advantage of the restraining order expiration and act the way he did. This should not be happening anymore. There is no justification for homicide.
We can therefore affirm that feminism has changed a lot from the 60s until now, but this doesn't mean that it is less important or that we should stop fighting for our rights. As we said before, we haven't completely reached our goal, and that's why we still need feminism in 2020.